right way to be confident. This is the first thing that's important. There isn't a right way to do it. There isn't a right way to stand, dress, show up, talk, speak, because confidence is a feeling. Do it for the story, because you never know when you might be stood on stage telling it. Thank you so much.
How we succeed. And I think sometimes in business and in early careers, we over-index on competence and we forget about warmth. I often think we ignore our emotions, but our emotions are just information, very valuable information that we can use to kind of help steer where we should go. So practically, it can be as simple as, taking a moment, somebody offers you an opportunity or you're deciding whether to do something. Just take a moment and go, feel it for half a second and you'll get that information.
Hi guys, excited to welcome today our guest at the Future of Skills podcast, no other than Kirsty Holz. Kirsty, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. And the topic we've got today to discuss about is the confidence in the age of automation and the future-proof skills. And a little bit of note about Kirsty. I'm thrilled to be joined by Kirsty today because Kirsty is not only an award-winning confidence coach and motivational speaker. Kirsty has done it herself with the myriad of projects that she's been working on, such as trained 40,000 people so far to be more confident in companies like LinkedIn, Amazon, and Spotify, and has spoken in some of the world's largest arenas in over 30 countries. She's also the creator of Confidence Live, which is an event that I've been following on LinkedIn for some time now. Her previous book, The Future is Freelance, was a finalist in the Startup Inspiration category in the Business Book Awards, and she recently won Most Inspiring Speaker at the 2022 Speaker Awards. So today, as I was saying, we're exploring this topic, the confidence in the age of AI automation and future-proof skills. So as AI continues to reshape industries, redefine decision-making, and challenge traditional career paths, one question stands out mostly. How do we as professionals remain confident in our skills, our expertise, and our ability to thrive? So Kirsty, we're happy to have you in.
Thank you. You made me sound very impressive.
Well, it's all in public mode. I'll take it out from your website and other sources, but very glad to be talking to you today about this amazing skill, the confidence. I know you've actually focused on developing it and talking about it a bit more. So I know that we've got a list of questions that we've prepared for today to go through, but really, in terms of who you are as someone who you would describe in 3 words of your choice, who do you think that might be? You in 3 words.
I think me in 3 words, I am driven, playful and kind.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All great choices. In terms of the word driven, I think it comes out pretty much in every content you do out there online. What do you think stands behind it? What's the background behind the word driven?
I think I, like many people, didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wasn't someone who had, a clear plan mapped out. My parents didn't go to university. There was never you should do this, you should do that. And so I think a lot of my drive comes from curiosity. I really like creating new things. I really like opportunities. I really like meeting new people. So my drive for me is just in this constant state of gratitude that I get to do stuff like this. And I think that keeps me doing a lot. People will often say oh, you do so much. But for me, that doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of stress. It's I get to do so much. It's so cool.
I can see that coming. So you're embracing the opportunity ultimately,
Always.
Right? You're just taking it on. And in terms of the career pathway, because that links up with what you were saying earlier, could you tell us a little bit about your earlier career journey, such as what has led you into the exploring confidence coaching as an opportunity, as your career direction? What were some of your most significant career building blocks along the way?
Well, I think about my first ever job. So my first ever job I had was I was selling energy door to door for a commission only wage. And I had to work 7 days a week, walking around, knocking on doors. And in 6 months, I made just over £100. I was so bad at it. It was a terrible use of my time. And I ended up just other people would be going around and selling things where I would just sit in old people's houses and chat and drink tea. Like I wasn't very good at it. And so I think about that, and I think about how hard it was to craft a career. I think about, before I knew what I was doing, it was incredibly difficult to find my voice and to find my path. And I was very fortunate in that I got into the digital marketing industry when it was new.
Yeah.
And somebody had seen basically how hard I was working and was like, you could take these skills and you could apply them to marketing, digital marketing. And so someone gave me a shot. And then because of that, I haven't stopped since. I loved working in marketing. I loved working on the internet and getting to learn new things and learn new trends. And then what I found that I was naturally very good at was people and speaking up. And a lot of my career success came from being very active in networking and building a personal brand. Even when I was much earlier in my career, one of my first ever roles, I was working as like a junior account executive in digital marketing at a very large agency. And the agency had about 5,000 people. And in my first week, I emailed the CEO and was like, hi, I've just started working here. Can we have a chat? And we did.
Did you?
Yeah, he met up with me. Yeah. So I think I've always had a trait of getting stuck in. And whatever it is that's in front of me, I give things my all. Because what's the point otherwise?
Of not doing it, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, but I love the actual input in terms of, you just want to discuss with the CEO. Why not?
Why
it's
not?
out there. Oh, wow, amazing. Well done. You've mentioned networking. I know we'll discuss a little bit in more detail the networking part, because there are a lot of people out there, through my coaching as well, I can see that the students are fearful of networking as a term itself, not only just mingling in the midst of it, right? So we'll get into a bit more nitty-gritty around that. In terms of your confidence in the career success so far, so that confidence is often seen as a soft skill, right? So how much influence do you think it actually has on the bottom line success in a business or a career?
It's literally everything. And that's not just me saying that. There's huge amounts of scientific evidence that shows, the more self-esteem an individual has, the more they earn. And it makes sense, because if you go, I think I can do this. Yeah. I think I can push myself forwards. I think I can speak to that person. There is such a direct correlation. I think sometimes we think of opportunities as these like clouds in the sky, but actually every opportunity is connected to an individual. And so every time we get a job, every time we get promoted, whatever it is, there's always going to be another individual advocating for you, supporting you. And when we learn the skill, and it is a skill, it's a learnable skill, when we learn the skill of being able to believe in ourselves, finding our voice and taking up space, it informs everything we do in our careers. Like, it really is, I think, maybe the most important. It's the shoulders that everything else rests on, I think.
Such a great analogy. Thank you so much for bringing it up in terms of like the pillar of everything else where the other skills might come out of. And I'd be very curious in finding out your earlier days. Were you a confident child, would you say?
No. The reason I teach confidence is because I had to learn it myself. I was crippled with low self-esteem. I still experience it now. But I spent a lot of my earlier years like not feeling good enough, not feeling like I could do anything, feeling quite lost. But what I did always have, and I was very fortunate, is I grew up performing. So my auntie ran a dance school. So, from the age of 2, I was like on stages and dancing. So I think I'd learned not how to not be nervous, but from a very young age, I'd learned that whenever you do anything, there's fear. Yeah. And I think I learned that lesson very young, that actually doing exciting, fun, cool, interesting things, the other side of that is you're going to be scared about it. So I was fortunate in that I never had the expectation that things should be easy, because they're not. But I think some people expect that things should be like effortless, or they're not for them. I think that's a bit of a myth sometimes we believe.
How interesting. You're opening up a very good topic here, because I guess people are often misled by the ease of how some of the skills are being taken on by some people, thinking that, okay, if it's that seems easy with that person, it should be easy with me, when in fact we don't know how many hours go into actually, taking on of that skill, and how much effort goes into that, and maybe some psychological work, some behavioral work, and neurodiversity work, whatever that might be. But it actually is a almost like a science that goes behind the scenes that we don't know of. So in terms of it being a learnable skill, I can absolutely resonate, because I can feel that everything needs a bit of effort to materialize ultimately. And in that note, would be very keen to find out from your perspective, what do you think played a major role in terms of helping you find your route with confidence? Was it your own drive, your own self-awareness of the fact that you actually need something like that? And then did you have any mentors that you can, share?
Yeah, when you asked like what played the biggest role in your confidence, my brain was like, me. I did it. And I was very fortunate that I did have lots of mentors, but I chose to kind of choose myself. And earlier in my career, I was like, I want to like make a life for myself. And one of my earlier motivations, which seems like very sweet now, but I wanted to buy nice shower gel. Yeah. I grew up in a family of boys. I've got 4 older brothers. So we always had like the 70p cheap blue shower gel. And I was like, I want to earn enough so I can buy the lovely shower gels. And I was like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to do that. And so I did a lot of work, a lot of reading, and a lot of scary things. And I was given a lot of, and doors open, I think, when you ask people for advice, when you share with people your goals, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're earlier in your career. If you say to someone, hey, I want to achieve something, I want to learn something, can you help? Humans are so helpful. And so you don't even need to have an agenda, but you do need to get comfortable asking people things and casting your net wide.
Because many feel probably unnatural with that, or maybe a little bit, as you said, encompassed or eclipsed by fear at some point, and they don't have that courage to actually ask that question. But when you were talking about some of the doors that would open in front of you, because you were the seeker and digger, I suppose, at that point, what do you think were some of the scariest thing? You've mentioned the word scary, that you would have done that, would have taken you out of your comfort zone to make that happen?
Okay, so the first thing that pops into my head, and I'm definitely thinking about my early career here, but the first thing that pops into my head is in one of my first ever jobs, I decided that it would be really cool to speak at an event. But I was very junior. I didn't have a personal brand. I didn't even know how to do that. I was like, I want to speak at events because I want to build a profile. How do I do it? And I couldn't figure out a path. So I went to someone in the company that I was working for at the time, and I was like, will you help me organize an event? And I organized one because I couldn't find an event that would have me. So I was like, fine, I will do my own. Now that was incredibly scary because I was, young, both in terms of my age and my experience. And suddenly I was trying to organize an event, get people there, get speakers. And I remember the morning of that, I was so petrified. And not even the morning, the weeks before I would do any kind of speaking, actually, I would have full on dread. I remember this one moment lying in bed, sobbing, why am I doing this? I can't do this. And so I think actually all of my early career was scary because you don't know, you're learning and I was having to adapt to all of these new places and these new rules that I didn't understand. And so when you ask me what was scary, the past 20 years just floods before me. I'm not someone who doesn't get intimidated by things. I'm the opposite. My nature is to overthink or catastrophize or go, oh, what could go wrong? That's who I am as a person. And that's never gone, but I've just learned to kind of sit next to it.
Observe in that sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So not be necessarily too much of a partaker in your thoughts or whatever, just so they don't lead you too far.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent trait. Kirsty, in terms of You've mentioned that there were some moments where you felt probably a tiny bit uncomfortable, right, in terms of, either knocking on the doors or being a little bit more active with that. But I suppose it comes with intuition of developing that sense of, okay, I still need to get myself a little bit out of that comfort zone to still try it, if not necessarily make that happen, but at least knowing that I've tried that, right?
Yes.
Were there any particular moments that you can recall, just looking back a little bit and thinking, oh, I'm really proud that I did it, because if I didn't have it done back then, probably a lot of things wouldn't have happened. Were there any particular moments like that?
I honestly believe every single moment is like that. I'm not a big 5-year planner. I'm not someone who will have a long plan and they work, by the way. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just different strategies. Some people like to have it all mapped out and go, I want to do this, I want to do this. That was never my style. But my style is to respond as powerfully as I can in any given moment. And that's been my path to success. So we're met constantly, aren't we, with micro choices all the time. Like little moments of, should I speak to the person serving me coffee? Should I say hi to my coworker in the kitchen? Should I strike up a conversation with my lecturer? Like these tiny moments, those are the things that accumulate. And I think often we think about the big stuff, the big moments, the choosing to go to uni or choosing your career. Like all of that is important, but I think what actually really counts is the tiny little choices we make all the time. And so my invitation to anybody listening is, next time you get a tiny choice to make, should I speak to that hot guy in the bar? Like make the tiny choice and make that small choice to be as intentional and positive as you can make it. And I think that's what changed my life way more than any of the bigger stuff. They're like tiny moments, tiny little,
Such an insight. But that comes with listening intuition, would you say?
Yes.
How do you do that?
I think, I have lots of answers to this. So in neuroscience, there's something called preparatory grind. And that is when people become more experienced at something, they use their brains less. So let's say like an athlete, for example, when you first start learning to play basketball, you really have to think about your movements, but then it gets so almost intuitive that your subconscious mind can take over. So when it comes to listening to my intuition, I have a few things that I do. The first thing is I ask myself the question, like, do I understand this? Like, do I have all of the information? If the answer to that is yes, then I will feel into my decision more. And it's subtle and it can be tricky, but often your body, your stomach will tell you. If you think about doing something and maybe you feel some butterflies in your tummy, but there's like some hope in your chest, like do that. Or if you think about doing something and you can feel the energy drain and you can feel it feeling flat, don't do it. I often think we ignore our emotions, but our emotions are just information, very valuable information that we can use to kind of help steer where we should go. So practically, it can be as simple as, taking a moment, somebody offers you an opportunity or you're deciding whether to do something. Just take a moment and go, feel it for half a second and you'll get that information.
That's exciting. That's basically what you're suggesting. Listen to your body a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's where intuition resides in, should we say, right? Because probably that there is a little bit more than we can sense with that. There's all sorts of theories around, aura reading and whatnot. It's just, your energy and how does that play when it comes to a given information that comes over, right? And how do you react to that? So I'm just trying to build up on that by saying that probably comes with anticipating your reaction over something.
Yes.
Right? That's pretty big. There's quite a behavioral science behind it, isn't it?
There really is. And I think we think about energy sometimes. And I think people write it off as it being, I don't know, like woo-woo or whimsical. But there's loads of science. As humans, we're constantly giving and receiving cues.
Yeah.
And there's two primary poles. There's like warmth and competence. There's something called the warmth and competence model, which I always teach people because I think it can be so helpful.
Please. I'm very curious. Yeah.
So there's warmth and competence, which are two kind of axes that humans are often communicating on or being communicated to by. And that is, Am I warm? Am I kind? Am I friendly? Are you safe with me? And then there's competence. Competence is, can I do the job? Can you rely on me? And people who are high in warmth and high in competence have more career success, people are more likable, get better dates, whatever it is. Like this warmth and competence is a really good axis. And so warmth, like, do you smile? What is your body language saying? Are you asking questions? Do you remember people's names? Do you laugh? Like, when I arrived here today, you handed me a bottle of wine, a huge warmth cue. So thank you. And then there's the competence, like, are you reliable? Are you organized? Do you do what you say you're going to do? And if any individual, whatever stage you're at in your career, you answer those questions, am I warm? Am I competent? Like, that's how we succeed. And I think sometimes in business and in early careers, we over-index on competence and we forget about warmth.
I used to be that way, I have to admit. To me, back in the days, also working and starting in digital marketing, I was thinking, everything that I need to put on the table when it comes to my role and whatever else is the performance. It's showing the results that I can do. I can, actually maneuver that and whatnot. In years, as much as, you get to interact with people, you get to know as many people as you were saying earlier. There's this drill of just knowing new people and finding out how they are, how they communicate and whatnot. It came to me this realization that actually people are not only expecting your results on the table, they expect to know a little bit more of who delivers these results, right? In terms of, is it the type of person, as you were saying, you would feel safe with, right? You would resonate with? Are you on the same sort of energy levels that you can, almost have this discussion on a longer term as opposed to shorter term? Because results are great, but if they're only results, the realization that I came up with is that they nurture the short term. The long term is not there. So to your point then, because you opened up quite a lovely door here regarding the warmth. Is it learnable?
Oh yeah, for sure. I even think about me, I'm actively thinking about my warmth now because what I learned is being on podcasts, I can do warmth if I'm speaking.
Yep.
So I can do eye contact and smile, but the moment I stop listening, I noticed I was seeing on videos that I would my body language would go off and I'd kind of be like all scrunched and I would frown and I didn't realize. And so now when I'm ever in a conversation, I'm thinking about my warmth. Like, am I doing those things that are important for humans to demonstrate it? So everything I always talk about, everything's learnable, everything. And I always liken it to swimming. Some people will be naturally good swimmers, but we can learn with enough practice and patience. So absolutely. And the nice thing about a lot of the non-verbal stuff we're talking about, like energy or these cues, they're a language we already speak. So if I say to you, next time you go into a room, be mindful of the energy you're bringing into the space, that's enough because we have this understanding. We know that we're speaking this language. So most of us, if I say, be mindful of the energy you're bringing, they'll be like, okay. And it can subtly change our behavior in a way that can have a big impact.
How interesting. So in terms of the energy that you carry with you, it's probably the message that you're trying to share here, right? And you're carrying a certain chemistry,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Certain H's and C's and whatever that might be. But when you're going to that room, or even the networking events that we consider that we would dive in a little bit more there. So what are some of the armory that you feel we should equip ourselves by? Obviously, you've talked about the smile. Yeah, that's common nature, right? For people who just want to feel that there's benevolence in the mix, right? Anything else that you feel might help?
Yes, there is a video of me on one of the first talks I ever delivered. And I love showing it to people because it surprises people. People assume that I was born like this. And so
same question I ask you, were you like that as a child?
No. And so people see me early career presenting and they're like, whoa, because I was stuttering and stumbling and I was visibly nervous. And what's interesting about that is I remember that event so specifically. And it was a long time ago now, and it was in tech. So I was working in technology at the time, and I wasn't the only female speaker. I was the only woman in the room. There was no other women. Fortunately, industries have changed. We love that. But I was sitting in that audience, and my head was racing with thoughts. This is going to be awful. They're not going to like me. They're not going to trust what I have to say. And so I got on that stage and I was basically annoyed with my audience at the imaginary questions I'd convinced myself that they were going to ask. And
Overthinking, isn't it?
We do this. It has a name. It's called protective pessimism. But most of us, let's say I had to go to a networking event literally yesterday. My instinct is to be like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. My instinct is to be like, oh God, it's going to be nervous. I don't, nobody will want to talk to me. It's going to be icky and disgusting. Like that's what I want my brain to start doing. And so I just make sure, and this is a non-negotiable for me, that I also add in some other thoughts that are true at the same time. So what this practice looks like for me is I'll be on my way to something. And I will have those natural fears of resistance and discomfort. And then I'll just make sure that at the same time, I'm being like, I like people. I've been to networking events before. If it's very bad, I can leave. And so I just make sure that I'm also making sure that my mental noise is as helpful as it can be. Because this can be a challenging thing for people to understand. But every single time we feel nervous, it starts with a thought. Every time. We can't change our feelings, and nor should we. Our feelings are our feelings, and they are welcome information. But we do have a bit of agency over our thoughts, a little bit.
How interesting. And that's a spectacular answer. Thank you so much. Feels like I'm receiving here a bit more like a masterclass on confidence. So that's amazing. And the fact that you said everything has a name potentially in this, like, you know, analyzing the topic of confidence. So you just given me a lovely terminology here. I had no idea it actually has a name. But when it comes to the thoughts, and you mentioned the agency of thoughts, and as you can see, I probably have like a list of questions that I'm actually not following at the moment, but really curious, the agency of thoughts and how we think that we can influence those. There's a thinking that if we are thinking less or trying to train ourselves to think less, that's a little bit more beneficial. Would you agree to that, or would you say there's something more to it?
I think the most important thing to say is we're all very different. So different people have different brains and think in different ways. I've got a very noisy brain. I'm a very anxious person. I've experienced extreme anxiety throughout my life. Also something that surprises people. And so for me, I cannot think less. I can't. I try and think less, and I end up reciting a poem I learned when I was 3 mentally. Like I can't think less, but I can direct my thoughts.
Right.
So I can, and my senses from working with tens of thousands of people is that with a lot of practice and patience, most of us can do this. Most of us can be like, oh, I'm having a really difficult day. Oh, look, the cloud looks nice. And we can almost direct our thoughts in a slightly different way. So if I find myself spiraling or catastrophizing, there's a couple of questions I'll mentally ask myself. And sometimes if I'm really in it, I will write it out. But often just thinking is enough. I might ask myself the question, okay, Kirsty, what lies am I telling myself right now?
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then normally it'll be like, you're not good enough, you're stupid,
And
whatever
that's a lie.
it is. And it's a lie. So then the next question is, what's the truth? And then the truth is normally like, you're safe, you do know what you're doing. And so then the idea is we just keep reinforcing those truths. And we can reinforce them by speaking them aloud. Sometimes I might put my AirPods in. If I'm on the way to like a big speaking gig and I need to manage my energy, I'll put my AirPods in and I will speak some positive truths. It looks like you're on the phone, but I'm just talking to myself. Or you can write them out, or you can just think them. There are lots of ways that we can do this. And it's just about adding more stuff in. We don't have to stop overthinking. Good luck with that. Or people always say to me, how do I stop caring what people think? I don't know, fall into a coma. Like humans overthink. It's what we do. So it's not about stopping. It's just about adding more in and doing that very actively and very consciously. And I honestly do that religiously. I couldn't do my job if I didn't.
You know, you're talking, and this is fascinating, the approach that you're sharing. And in my head, this analogy comes up of making a soup and the ingredients that you put in, you know.
That is so, would you say that? In my training, I teach this as the onions are in the soup.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's like an analogy I use. So maybe you got into my brain.
I don't know, but it's just you were talking to me and I was like, my gosh, it's like it's an ingredient. What do you put? Do you put some pepper? It's really not good for your brain. Or do you put some carrot that probably is useful, you know?
As I was sharing, I was like, should I do the soup analogy?
Nice one. And now, you know, it really is inspiring me what you just said about the approach to our thoughts, about being a little bit more careful and observing the feelings, and not like they should go away or something, but just being a little bit more self-aware of what you're doing, what your energy and how you're manipulating. You mentioned a lovely phrase here, how you're managing your energy when you're going to a gig or some big event, when you might be feeling a little bit anxious. So my next question might be here is, are there any particular techniques of how do you acknowledge and manage your energy?
Lovely. So I think maybe let's address perhaps something that a lot of people listening to might experience. Maybe let's think about nerves first.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Because nerves are maybe the thing that will throw all of this out the window. Like, if you're very nervous, good luck trying to manage your energy. Your energy is terrified and shaking and your palms are sweaty. And so if you're someone who is very fearful or is shy or does have a lively inner critic, what's important to remember first off is that version of you that is terrified is a child. Research has shown that our kind of negativity bias starts when we're about like 5 years old. So, you know, when we're going, oh, will I get laughed at? Am I good enough? It's like an old version of us. It's a defense mechanism that starts when we're little. And so next time anyone listening is like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, understand that that's a 5-year-old version of you going like, pulling on your coattails, being like, are we okay? Are we okay?
I love that.
Am I safe? Am I safe? So whenever I find myself feeling very anxious, I don't see it as an adult me. I see it as a child me. Because when we understand that our fears are young and vulnerable, what it does is it allows us to respond with kindness. And here's the thing with confidence. You can't fix self-doubt with self-doubt.
Right.
We have to fix it with acceptance. And we have to fix it with kindness. So many people go, oh my God, I'm such a wimp, or why am I nervous? It's just a meeting. Like, what's going on with me? Whereas actually we can be like, oh, okay, there's a vulnerable part of me that is terrified. And then how would you respond to a young person? Well, you'd give them some reassurance. You'd make sure they're okay. And that's exactly what we should be doing for ourselves when we're nervous.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's always where we should start. And then understand, I was having a conversation with my partner last night, and I've taken on a new role as a CEO of a tech company whilst doing my other stuff. So I have a lot going on. And I was stressed about it yesterday, and I was crying, and I was like, can I do this? And then afterwards, I was embarrassed. I don't know if you ever get this, but sometimes if I like experienced like an emotion or like fear, afterwards I'll be like, oh my God, that was embarrassing. I'm sorry. And then he, and he said to me, he was like, your behavior at the moment is super normal. And I was like, oh, thank you. He was like, you're doing a lot. Of course you're going to have moments where it feels overwhelming. Like, you're doing a lot. Of course you're going to have moments where you panic. And that's very important as well. That when we're scared, when we're stressed, when we're worried, we like understand that it's not a unique or irrational reaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And whatever it is that we're feeling, there is somebody else that's feeling the exact same thing right now.
Or if not, they're probably not human.
Yeah, I don't want to have a chat with them.
No, exactly. There was this phrase actually on LinkedIn, again, guilty of that. But there was this phrase that I caught up with someone saying that Elon Musk most recently said that the weakness out there in the world is that a lot of people are getting empathetic. And to me, it's, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that empathy is a weakness, but it's more like a reassurance of, trying to be compassionate to other people. And what you're saying here is trying to be, first of all, compassionate to yourself, trying to, acknowledge that there's some vulnerable part in you. Of course there would be, because, we're not machines or anything. We're humans, we're biology wrapped up in whatever atoms out there. But it's the case of just trying to be a little bit more kind. Yeah, you've noticed there was this, one of the 3 words that you've chosen was to be kind, right? So how you view yourself. And that's, I think, probably is the answer of not giving that much importance to the fear and more listening to your other more reinforcing traits in that end. And that actually carries me nicely to this question regarding the build-up and how do you utilize the building of your confidence throughout your career path. Because a lot of our audiences are young people who are in the midst of finding their route in their career, be it in the form of applying for a university or maybe doing an apprenticeship or maybe just trying something on their own, which is also very scary or can be scary. On that note, do you think there's this big correlation between confidence and career acceleration? So how do people with strong self-belief navigate their career growth differently from those who are just starting out and they don't feel much of a confidence?
Yes. And I think this is true whatever stage you're at in your career. And I think I often joke that the good news is everybody feels like this. The bad news is everybody feels like this. Like, I found in my career, I'm still as scared as I was when I was early career, but that's because the stakes got higher. Confidence is this evolving thing that grows as we do. When we're starting out, we need confidence to begin, and then we need confidence to continue going, and then maybe we need confidence to try new things, management, leadership, whatever it is. So for anyone just starting out, I would honestly recommend dedicating a bit of time to actively nurture your confidence. Humans have something called the negativity bias, which is messy, but it basically means that we're genetically predisposed to focus on bad. And 100 people could say, you look amazing today. And one person goes, you're disgusting. Like, what are we remembering? Like, what are we focusing on?
That part.
Exactly. So it's no wonder then that confidence isn't something that comes naturally. It's something that we actively have to work on. And the way we do this is fairly simple. I have a quick tip. People always ask me for quick tips, and I'm often a bit resistant because I'm like, this is a lifelong journey of deep work. There is no quick tip, but this is one. When you're brushing your teeth, that's kind of empty space. And the way that habits work is habits like to stick to pre-existing habits. Confidence is a habit. Confidence is a habit. So is motivation. So is happiness. These are all choices that we choose in the moment. So every single time you brush your teeth, reflect on, think about, acknowledge what you've done really well. Because what that will do is it will help you internalize some of the positive thoughts about what you're doing alongside of some of the other more negative ones. That's just what we do as humans. And it can be as simple as that. And if you do that every single day, it won't have an impact if you do it once, but it will have an impact if you do it 3,000 times. And when you're brushing your teeth, what else are you doing? Take some time at the end of every single day. Tiny moments, cumulative. That's what we should be focusing on.
So associate that habit of just acknowledging what are the good stuff and then add it to your brushing teeth, because you never skip your brushing teeth, hopefully.
In theory.
That's exciting. That really means that there are some techniques out there, as you say, some quick tips that can be taken on just so you can reinforce some of the positivity around you and the message that you can build up on. Now, talking about the career element and the habits that you develop throughout the way, there is a question here that I have that's more around the build-up of those stakes as you go up. And here is this element of being stuck in the middle management, for instance, and how you might struggle as you climb further. So here, the question that I have is, what confidence-related behaviors do you think or habits separate those who break into the leadership pathway?
So I teach leadership confidence a bit separately because leadership confidence is more about presence. So people often think that confidence is loud. Confidence can actually just be slowing down, taking a deep breath, feeling comfortable to take a moment. And confidence at a leadership level is actually about the space that you can create for other people. And it's a slightly more advanced skill. When we first start out, we develop our confidence in three steps. So the first is we're speaking to people to impress them. And that's when we're like, I hope they think I'm clever. I hope they think I'm good. Then we move into speaking to people to inform to them. Kind of like maybe you shared earlier, like here are my results and I can do what I do. And it's kind of newsreader. And that's good. Most people in businesses stay there. But then there's the third one, which is when you speak to people to inspire them. That's when we're thinking about our emotions and what we're giving to people. And a lot of the way that we can learn leadership confidence is through counterintuitively silence. Like if we learn, and a podcast isn't a good place to demonstrate it, but if we learn the ability to create space, like mental space. So I can tell when I'm talking, like you're listening to me. But often when we're in conversations with people, we're in our head going, what am I going to say next? Okay, yeah, I've got that question next, or I've got that thing next, and I've got that. If we want to develop leadership confidence, the first step is to try and give people your presence. When you're talking to someone, like be there, be in the room, be with them. It shifts the energy, and it's that energy that you're looking for as a leader. The ability to sit next to somebody and help them feel safe, help them feel heard. Often leaders forget this. They're very stressed themselves, and they go, I'm going to tell my team not to be stressed or not to burn themselves out, but they're stressed.
The exactly inverse of that.
Exactly. So yeah, leadership confidence is about modeling the behaviors you want to see in other people.
Sounds like it's not an easy job, but just the sound of it.
Nope. Like leadership confidence is working on your own stuff in a big way so that we don't project our emotions or... and that's something that I'm constantly trying to work on.
Kirsty, so I know you mentioned that in your build-up, when you were basically working on yourself first, before you became a confidence coach, and the mentorship element of that comes big time alongside it. Were there any particular? I know you mentioned the mentors and also the books. Is it something that stood with you a little bit more consistent? Be it the books, be it whatever other content that you consume that you can resonate with and share.
I think I've always reached out for different things at different times. So enough. I'll always have something that maybe, I'm interested in. And people always ask me for book recommendations, so I'll give one now.
I know, that was my next question. I was gently trying to pull into that harbor.
People love it. There's a book called Self-Compassion by a researcher called Dr. Kristin Neff. And that is maybe perhaps the most impactful book that I've read. And I think it's a fantastic starting point for anybody to learn confidence. So that's always my go-to recommendation.
Thank you.
And I read that, I think, in 2016. I've read it a few times since. And I have different things. So, sometimes I'll be doing meditation religiously. Sometimes I'll be doing yoga a lot. Other times I'll be focusing on my fitness. Other times I'll be in therapy. I always have something. But for me, it will chop and change, depending on my season. And I think we're often conditioned in the world that people say consistency is key, and consistency is key. But I think for most of us, that consistency won't be day to day. It might be year on year. If you look at how I've shown up in my career, it's a bit bitty if you look at it close. But if you pull out, I've always shown up, I've always done things. But for me, that consistency is a wider lens, if that makes sense.
You mentioned bitty. For me, that's a tiny bit of a new word, I have to admit. What do you mean by that?
I've kind of done one thing, then done something else, then done something else.
So it could be perceived as inconsistent in that way.
Yes.
Yes. But instead, it's not what you're saying. It's always been this underlying element.
Yes. And some people are very good at doing lots of different things. And it took me, I am nearly 37, I think. I'm nearly 37 years old. And it took me this long to realize that I don't operate linearly. And what I mean by that is you sit me in front of a spreadsheet with a 5-year plan, I extinguish. I'm someone who can context switch. I can flip between different things. I can take on lots of projects. And I think the lesson here for anyone is find your curiosity, find when you come alive and follow it. all I've ever done throughout my whole career is just followed my curiosity. If it makes me curious, I do it. If it doesn't, I don't. And it takes a while for that to tie together. But when you're following your curiosity or your enthusiasm, eventually it will just click and you'll be like, oh, this is the thing. So yes, that's what I mean by bitty.
Wow, you see, that's something for me to actually take on, digest, because I resonate a lot with what you're saying. I feel that there's this element of when you're curious, you get the drive, you get the passion along the side, and you get to make things happen. Of course, not all of them. There's this lovely Pareto principle, right, where it's like 80 to 20. Not all of your effort will actually turn out into something really meaningful, but it's the knowing of yourself as part of the process, isn't it?
Yes.
When you go through it.
Yes, and also an acknowledgement that like a lot of work is boring. Yes. It is. I have to do boring things all the time. I have to do like admin tasks, and I would say probably 50% of my day job is quite boring and I don't enjoy it. But 50% of it I love. So we have to make sure, especially if we're just starting out, when we're trying to find our path, don't expect yourself to know, but do understand that somewhere within you have an answer, and that answer will demonstrate itself through your curiosity.
Thank you, Kirsty. You give a lot of encouragement to curious people.
Yeah, yes.
And also you've mentioned, this quite interesting part before I dive into the next one, because next one is also an interesting question around the trait of working in a remote versus in-person environments. But I'm curious about what you mentioned, to be alive, because, when you listen to what's driving your curiosity and what makes you a little bit more passionate and whatnot, it's what keeps you alive as well along the side, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a researcher called Dr. Stuart Brown, and he focuses on play. And there's a quote from one of his books that says, the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression.
Right.
I incorporate play into everything I do. Everything. And then play isn't what we think it is. Play isn't just like, I don't know, telling jokes. Like, it can be that. It can be connecting with people. It can be listening to music. It can be dancing. It can be doing sport. It can be connecting with nature. But we, as humans, we have to find play, because research has shown that we experience a play deficit in the same way we experience a sleep deficit. So try and, whatever it is that you're thinking about doing, whatever your career is, make sure that within that you could have small moments of play. For me, there's different play types, different play personalities. Yeah. Anyone interested, definitely Google play personality. We don't have time to cover it today. There's 8 different play personalities, and mine is the storyteller, through and through. I love telling stories. And I didn't know that, but I, through my own curiosity, created a career of telling stories.
Yep.
And so if you're just starting out, you can find out your play personality now and think about what would be the jobs that would connect with that. There's one called competitor. And so if your play personality is a competitor, you should be working in finance or something. So it can be really important to think about play and think about how we can have more of it in our lives, because it's so important and it gets disregarded in the workplace.
Yeah, I hope it also is very linked to the mental health element, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Therefore, you were saying keeping yourself alive through the play element is probably helps the brain get challenged a little bit more, and therefore keeping it alive in that sense, right? Because ultimately it's still that chemical in the mix of it. Talking about the in-person versus remote, because we were discussing the career element and how we're growing through career and through the middle management through to the leadership positions, and now we're going to talk about some of the, and very curious about your thoughts on here, as a remote and hybrid work becomes more prevalent these days, does confidence building look different in a virtual setting compared to in-person workplace?
Yes. So in 2016 I wrote a book on remote working and how it was the future.
Early days though.
Right? Mm-hmm. I think I disagree with that version of me now. I was very pro remote work, and I still am. But as humans, we need to be socialized. We really need to be with other people. And especially what I think is difficult when you're working exclusively remotely is understanding how work environments operate and absorbing those kind of, this is how that person speaks to somebody. So if you are in a fully remote role, make sure that you're getting additional support from mentors, from senior people, you're asking questions, because often we learn through being in an environment and we just pick things up. We don't have that as much with remote work. So then mentorship becomes even more essential. I also know that if you're starting out a career, like remote work is very enticing, but definitely don't rule off in office environments. And it's quite personality dependent, but you get a lot from being around people as humans. We do get a lot of sense of community and relatedness and friendship when we're with people. And whenever I'm mentoring young people, they're always like, I want to work fully remote. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I love that for you. And maybe try and experiment and try some things on for size before you fully decide. I love being back in offices, and I literally wrote a book on remote working.
Yes. And again, because you're saying about the remote working, and that was written before COVID times when a lot of us had experienced that without necessarily having a choice, right? But it's the case of how do you acknowledge the fact that we are social beings and we need to be in the midst of it and, see, like you were saying, observe how other people communicate. And even that is quite beneficial alone in its own sort of making. And that slides us nicely into the next question, which is around uncertainty and dealing with that. So if someone is, for instance, worried about their job becoming obsolete, because there's another element of, working remote, working in the office, and then some of people are experiencing these days the, redundancy element. How do you think confidence can help them pivot and stay ahead in the industry changes?
Yes. I think it's essential, whatever chapter in our lives we're in, that we have hope. Especially, we're in a very interesting environment in the world. AI is going to automate huge amounts of jobs, and especially earlier careers jobs, without a doubt. So it's absolutely essential that we keep speaking to people, keep learning, and have utter conviction that you'll make something work. Often we think we need confidence. We don't. We need conviction. And conviction is that deep-seated belief that you'll be all right, that you'll figure it out, also known as tenacity. And that will take us very far. And so make sure that you are engaging with technology very actively. Learn to love technology. Learn to connect with it. Don't be afraid of it. It is here. And I think I'm in many ways a techno-optimist. And what I mean by that is I think there's going to be so many positive applications and so many positive things that will happen for the world in the future. And when we have a worldview like that, it helps us open ourselves up to those opportunities. So that would be my advice to anybody experiencing uncertainty. Try and find a place of like hope, and know and acknowledge that it's difficult and it's hard. And because without hope, it's hard to persist.
Thank you so much. Again, it's another great encouragement here that you're sharing for those who are in this position. And perhaps, as you mentioned, tenacity being the core element behind it is developing that a little bit more, that belief, that conviction. And then in terms of the trends, you've mentioned that obviously AI is here to stay. So you're a tech optimist by nature at the moment. But do you think that as the workplace evolves, there are potentially some emerging trends in confidence coaching and personal development that you have observed along the way?
Yes. I mean, my job will be very automated very soon. So in personal development, I've seen a lot of like AI coaches, AI therapists are a thing now. And I'm not against that. Like, I don't think, I don't know, that one's weird. But like AI coaches, AI therapists, like a lot of like AI developed online learning, all of the things that I do can absolutely be automated. But what can't be automated is emotion. And so try and find your humanity more than ever. And I think I'm not worried. I don't know, maybe this will come to bite me in my face, but I'm not worried that people wouldn't work with me because they could get AI to do it, because I offer something else. And the thing that I offer is joy, humor, play, silliness, connection. So find your thing that is uniquely you. And that could be kindness, empathy, curiosity, and make sure that your skills that you're developing at the moment are your competencies but more than anything, your humanity. Nurture your humanity, find out who you are, and make yourself indispensable by just being exactly who you are. And there's loads of different ways that we can do that.
Sounds like these are the kind of golden words you would put somewhere, on the panel and actually have it written there for you to read every day. Thank you so much for that, Kirsty. That you literally, when you speak, it feels like you're opening up more and more pathways to explore about yourself, about who you are, and how you can then, through knowing how you can add value and become indispensable, become someone who then inspires others to grow in their own way. And with that, I think we're coming towards the end of our lovely discussion, and I think it's been packed with so many gems so far that it's just, it's going to take a while for people to just, go through it, listen to it, but then take a pen and a paper and take some notes alongside so that they can then research further, identify further more resources where they can research a little bit about these traits and how to become a lot more convicted in some of the better ideas about themselves and how to become more valuable in this realm. And the very final one that I'd have then, it's to do with the tips that start boosting confidence. A little bit more. I know you've mentioned already some practical exercises, and I'm very grateful for that. And the very last one that I would have is, if a listener wants to start boosting their confidence literally today, what would you recommend?
Come up with a list of your strengths and come up with a list of qualities that you like about yourself. And you need a lot. We need to get comfortable going, I am funny, I am kind, I am... And I think sometimes people worry that if we do that, we'll get arrogant. But arrogant people require external validation. Confident people have internal validation.
Love that.
So the more we nurture our own confidence, the further away from arrogance we get. So that would be the first thing I would do. Like, know the things about you that you're like, yeah, that is me, actually. Like the things that when you feel most proud of yourself, most like you, how are you showing up? How are you behaving? Because when it comes to confidence, we spend so much time thinking about who we're not. Actually, what we need to do is create a mental blueprint so that we can almost step into. And so first place to start is take some time to be like, what do I like about myself? When I feel awesome, how do I show up? How do I dress? How do I speak? How do I stand? And almost give yourself a direction. That's the first place to start. And it's actually quite simple, but it's often not what we do because we get trapped in our kind of the negative thoughts. And the last thing to say is, anybody listening here that wants to be more confident, everyone already has all of the ingredients to be more confident. There is no such thing as a not confident person, because confidence is a feeling. And I know everyone listening to this has felt confidence at some point, whether you're wearing that dress or playing video games or with your friends. We all have access to the confidence that lives within us. And so all we have to do is give ourselves permission to experience it in a wider range of scenarios. Because really confidence isn't just something we learn, it's something we remember. We're born confident. First thing a baby does is scream. Give me attention, see me. Toddlers, they're very confident. Toddlers aren't not having tantrums in case they look stupid in the supermarket. We forget it. Yeah. So I know as humans, our nature is to be confident. So find yourself back to that place slowly.
Excellent recommendation to nicely wrap it up with. Thank you so much for this, Kirsty. I feel like it's been wrapped up with and packed with so many gems. It's really a delight. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers.